in the form of Tsonga. And now, the previous caller just asked a very interesting question of what must happen to the members of the SACP who are in government the minute this position is adopted and executed, because it's not a new decision. It's an old decision, but it has never been actualized to say, let's now go out and be a political party. But it immediately means something. And so your question is correct. The ANC needs to be very careful, because yes, this is going to be painful, but if it's a dare, then the ANC stands to lose big if it's sitting with an opposition within its own ranks. That's my view, Katie.
Sean, do you think that the SACP views the step in the way that it really is in relation to opposition politics, that in fact it will be an opposition party to the ANC, rather than it seeing this as a way of clawing back on its own credibility and perhaps strengthening its own position within the tripartite alliance? Because as things stand, nobody from the ANC, from the SACP rather, is saying anything about leaving the alliance.
You see, they won't say anything about it, because then it immediately speaks to people like Bladen, Demande, Puti Mandamela, and so on and so on. But the minute the decision is taken, the minute the SACP is listed as a political party opposing the ANC, what it means is that the ANC now needs to act, because it's set precedent. It has expelled somebody on the basis of that. But here's the thing. The SACP cannot survive outside an alliance such as the ANC. And there are examples of people who thought they could survive outside the ANC, and they seem to be dwindling. And these members and these leaders would be aware that it does become cold, whether you like the ANC or not. It does become cold once you're outside. So I don't think they will actively want to do something that sends them out. But policy will dictate that once they've taken a decision to be listed as a political party opposing the ANC, they'll have to be put out, whether the ANC likes it or not. So this has got to be a negotiated settlement of some sort, because it does put the ANC in some quagmire, if you understand what I mean.
Thanks for that contribution, Sean, out in Durban. And Sean says, well, it's not something the SACP can survive doing on its own. Part of my question is also, can the ANC really survive this too? Not in the sense that perhaps there will be this mass support for the party, but perception is everything, especially when one is in the process of building up towards an election. Can the ANC afford yet another, division? Can they afford division? Can they afford what would seemingly come across as a split of sorts, even though not officially called one? Can they afford that going into a local government election, which we know generally has lower turnout numbers, lower participation rates across the country? Gwena, in Midrand, you want to switch gears at least slightly. You want to talk about municipalities.
Yes, Ms. Kathy. How are you, Ms. Kathy? Hope you are this morning. Ms. Kathy, I've sent request previously to ask the municipality of Polokwane under Aranang. There was a municipality called Aranang, and seemingly it was dissolved, and then every municipality went back to Polokwane for Hamatala. To come on the radio and answer us, are we not human? Don't we deserve to be treated like one? I mean, from Polokwane to Venda, from Polokwane to Bekasford, from Polokwane to Bela Bela, Seskesi, you drive nicely with a tar road from the capital city to the next town, but then just on the doorstep of the city, there's a Matala road. The only road that they maintain is that road because it links the logistic to Lephalale and those sides if you're going to Botswana. But when you go down to Amatala to the Kohoshing, they only made a tar road that is going to the gate of the Queen. They made a tar road that ends 5 kilometers from the Matlala Road, it only ends at the clinic. From there, it's a gravel road, a long gravel road that even taxis, some of the taxis when it's raining, they can't get in. They're going to drop you off. It's either where the tar road ends and you are still going like 5 kilometers away. And if you buy a taxi today, trust me, it will only last 3 months. Then you will be crying for your property. There's a hospital called Nobel. If you go to that hospital, maybe one day take your team, go there and experience what people experience here. You find people sleeping on the bench. Ask the former Minister of Health, Dr. Poppy Matuba, why they don't visit that place. I'm born in that place. Today I'm approaching my 40. Even today we're still struggling. And you can ask anybody. The premier, I don't remember even single day, a premier of Limpopo going, it's only 25 km from Polokwane. It's Seshego, Mashashane, then it's Amatlala. I never even one day remember the premier coming to our village. Last time he promised to come, they didn't come. Last time the community, they made a group called Matamasha, which is Matala and Mashashane. They blocked the Matala road because that's the main road that they use. And they requested travelers or the people who are traveling in that road going to Lephalale and those side to use the Mashashane road through Matala, which is a gravel road, even the official, so that they can feel the pain that people are feeling every day. And even the Minister of Transport, they've provided us with buses called Great North. Those buses, if you go there, and I think you had a conversation about it previously, those buses, they don't even function. There is a smoke within the bus. People are going to work. You get to work with a smell of a smoke. How can you treat people like that?
Yeah. Look, Kwena, all of the issues that you've raised, I think, are all really legitimate issues. In fact, we'll put it down as one of the areas that we need to visit for our municipal watch conversations. And you're right, I'm from Polokwane, so I know that Ramatlala tends to be one of those areas that is neglected. In fact, it's seen as more rural than some of the other areas that are within the same kilometer radius out of town. And you talk about the state of those Great North buses. I mean, if you go to that rank where they often park just next to Hosiame, it's incredible. Like the state that some of those buses are in, one questions if they're even roadworthy, and yet they're transporting people on a day-to-day basis. So I think that you have raised very legitimate concerns, and we'll see when we have the opportunity just to take a closer look at what is happening in the municipality, and perhaps give the officials also an opportunity to come and explain the state of affairs and address some of these concerns that you've raised, Kwena. Eddie, you're in Cape Town. You want to talk about corruption. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Sis Kathy. Yes, Sis Kathy, the ANC and corruption, this is one and the same thing. So what I'm trying to say here is people are crying to Ramaphosa. We have these people that are corrupt. You need to remove these people. And Ramaphosa seems to do nothing about it, because Ramaphosa is part and parcel of the same corrupt people. I mean, if you look at the issue of Phala, I mean, really, it was an issue that Ramaphosa at that time was supposed to step down, because he admitted himself that, yes, indeed, there was a robbery at his farm. And that also the amount of the money that was found there was cash that was not even declared. Already he violated even the constitution, but he survived. The ANC has this nature of protecting each other, no matter somebody has done something wrong. So it harbors these corrupt people, and that's, I'm saying, ANC and corruption cannot be separated. It's one and the same thing. So now I agree with Malema when he says to the DA that you knew about the ANC, but you yourself went and joined the ANC, but you knew the ANC is a corrupt party. So now there's nothing for the DA to cry on these matters, because they know about the ANC. ANC is a corrupt party, and its nature when it comes to corruption. The time when Zuma was the deputy president, I mean, for Thabo Mbeki to fire him, it was because of corruption. But the ANC came and fought against Thabo Mbeki. You see, because they want to bring this corruption, it's their nature. They don't want to separate it from them. You see, so when you talk about ANC and corruption, you cannot say that you are talking two different things. Yes, it's one and the same thing. So that is my point I wanted to say, Oscar.
Yeah, Eddie, the contradictions are only increasing by the day. And I saw one of the things that, the DA has said now, Helen Zille talking about fielding a motion of no confidence in the president in parliament. And you just, you have to ask yourself what's really going on. Do you get a sense that a party like the DA has a clear strategy on how it's going to navigate its way in this GNU, given the state of affairs right now? Because it does give a lot of back and forthing and making decisions on the spot. And unfortunately, there's only so many times you can cry wolf that people will listen.
Honestly, for me, the DA I see as a party that sometimes, like a dog that barks, sometimes when you give something to eat, then he's quiet, So the behavior of the DA is almost like that. Whenever there's something which they are not happy with, then they'll back at you, just because there is something. But the moment you have done something which they are happy with, then they are quiet. So I mean, you cannot be like that. You have to take your stand and stay in that lane, not move. But the moment you move to another lane, it means now you don't know where you actually stand. So as even if they were close to the ANC, to the votes with the ANC, but it was not a reason for them to say that now let's merge and form a coalition government. No, because they say that you guys really, no matter we were so close to each other, but with you, as we know who you are, we cannot come into bed together with you. Or rather maybe find your friends that you can form your government. If not, then the DA was supposed to find its own friends to form a government. I don't know, maybe it cannot work because the ANC was the majority. But, I mean, then they should have waited for the next elections so that maybe they can have the majority of the votes and say that, yes, now legally, now we have they become a government. But now they want to make a shortcut because they don't have confidence in themselves to say that for us to wait, we don't know what will happen when it comes to the next elections. Maybe we may end up now not making it to the government. So let's take a test of what it means to be a minister of agriculture, what it means to be the minister of home affairs, so that we have at least a test of being in the government. But they should not have rushed. Sometimes the wait is the better, because then people can have a full confidence in you that your fight is indeed a real fight. But the moment you want to make shortcuts, then people start now to lose hope in you that maybe you just make noise for the reason that you want to benefit something. Yes, Oscar.
Thanks for that contribution, Eddie. Let me move on to Charlie in Koffiefontein. Good morning, Charlie.
Good morning, Katie. Yes, man. I want to talk regarding the Mthatha floods. It is very disheartening what's happening in South Africa, Katie. A couple of years back, the devastating fires in Knysna. When those fires were there and they destroyed the neighborhoods and the people's properties and everything there, you know what happened in South Africa, Casey? Big businesses. Two major banks, FNB, I think, and Standard Bank, donated 10 million each to the victims of the Knysna fires. ABSA also donated there. Pick n Pay also donated there. I mean, like companies like DHL, all these big companies. The Lions Club International, they also donated there. Now comes the disaster into Umtata, the floods, which claimed over 100 lives. The ones in National, I think it was about 5 or 7, if I'm not mistaken. Those businesses are nowhere to be seen, Casey. Not one of them are prepared to go and donate to the victims of Umtata. Not one of them are prepared to lend their services there. Pick n Pay, the one which used to give food to the victims of National, they are nowhere to be seen. I think Black Coffee is one of the people who raised money, like 500,000 K, to donate to the victims of Umtata. Now, we are not going to beat around the bush, Casey. The reason why is that it's pretty obvious. In Umtata, all of the people who were affected were black people. In National, people who were affected were black and white people. So when white people are affected, the big businesses come in, they donate millions and millions and millions. But those businesses are nowhere to be seen in one of the worst flooding our history has ever seen. I mean, more than 200 people are dead as we speak regarding those floods. And none of them are prepared to come forward and donate. But they went and donated in National because the leafy suburbs were affected, the minority were affected in National. And I'm asking also myself, why is the media not asking that? Why are the big businesses not donating to the Umtata floods? But they wrote out their checkbooks for the victims in National. There is something that we need to ask, Katie. It's because people in Umtata, all of them who have passed away were black people, and those who have been affected were black people. But the ones in National, they were white people. That's why the big businesses could donate there. That's what I wanted to raise, Casey.
Fair enough. And I think a very important observation, right? Because the one thing that one certainly cannot deny is the overwhelming presence and show of support that is there from corporate, from NGOs during times of crisis in particular areas, as Charlie's raising. And it really is perhaps up to those organizations in order to answer the question, to explain what is the criteria that is used. How do you decide when to respond and when to not respond in order to deal with perceptions such as what Charlie is raising? Bhutan, are you in Rosebank?
Good morning, my sister. I'm not bothered so much about the fight between the ANC, the strategy, and the SACP. What gives me sleepless night is the entrenched criminal enterprise that has been set up by ANC in government, municipality, and SOEs. The auditor killed. He's not the only person that has been killed. And that is why that is what explains as well that why the Auditor General is reluctant to recoup our money from the crooks. And it doesn't end there. Even the top guy, the commissioner of police, is a crook. He's a crook. Setup of criminals. When will this thing end? Why can't they focus strategy on that, removing these criminals? By the way, Signimu Fumari told us, as Zondo told us about this crooks and criminals that are there. The ANC do nothing about it. Nothing. That's what gives me sleepless night. Where are we going about this country? When it's run by crooks and criminals. Right now in Guruleni, a child has been killed. And it's not going to end there.
Butana, those, again, very legitimate concerns. And as long as there's no political will to do anything about it, and that's really one of the things that gets exhausting about local government politics. It's that the same issues keep being highlighted over and over again. And sometimes what happens is that the election results lean in the direction of parties that have been in power. And so those cycles continue, even though there, in some instances, is clearly no political will to resolve some of the political challenges at a local level that lead to these problems. So who must do what then? Who must do what? Because those that look and say this is what people have voted for, they're not wrong. It's part of the reflection that we also have to take on. Because you cannot do something over and over again and expect different results. And the reality is, there, more often than not, is no appetite to deal with some of these issues politically at the level at which they exist, which is why we continue to see what is happening. And you know what? It's the families that suffer the most, it's the communities that suffer the most, and it's just from one politician to another, the cycle continues. It's time for your latest news.
Top stories. The Sabah acting Joburg mayor expected to resume operations targeting hijacked buildings in the CBD. And Australian airline Qantas investigates a significant cyber attack. Good morning. I'm Cholani Tulongwebe. Acting Johannesburg Mayor Kenny Kunene is expected to resume operations targeting hijacked buildings in the city's CBD today. Yesterday, Kunene and law enforcement officers raided a hijacked building in Marshalltown, which led to the arrest of over 40 undocumented foreign nationals. The operations are part of a revitalization plan approved by the mayoral committee in March as a coordinated effort to reclaim the inner city. Kunene elaborates.
The purpose was to enforce bylaws, but also to disconnect illegally connected electricity and water. And indeed, we achieved that. EMS has prepared a report after they did an assessment that the building is unsafe, the building is uninhabitable, and therefore the people must be evacuated. So we will go back to the building. I'm meeting with the MMC of Social Development to see if there's alternative shelter where we can then evacuate South Africans too.
Enyobeni tavern owner Siyakhangela Ndevu is expected to take the stand today in the Enyobeni inquest sitting at the Mdantsane Magistrates Court in East London. The inquest is investigating who should be held liable for the deaths of 21 teenagers at Enyobeni Tavern in Scenery Park in 2022. Yesterday, Ndevu, who is representing himself, was leading the evidence of investigating officer Colonel Zingisa Machova, who was part of the first team of investigators to examine the scene. During Majova's testimony, Ndevu questioned her about the role that parents played in the matter, arguing that Majova and her team should have held the parents responsible for gross negligence for allowing their children out of the house in the middle of the night.
And every day, knowing that the children are drinking, wandering about, I would even wake up at 12 o'clock to go and check in the bedroom of my child. And by the time the police officers were going to different homesteads, in some homes they arrived finding parents who were so drunk, not knowing what was going on.
4 people accused of conspiring and inciting the 2021 July unrest are expected to appear in the Roodepoort Magistrates Court today. It is alleged that they posted inciting messages on a WhatsApp chat group named Zuma Real Activist 100%, which authorities believe led to the public violence and looting of retail stores in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal at the time. They face charges of conspiracy to commit public violence and 2 counts of incitement to commit public violence. They are currently out on 1,500 rand bail each. The bail application by 3 people accused of 9 murders for insurance claims will resume at the Polokwane Magistrates Court in Limpopo. Sergeant Rachel Kudumela, her sister Anna Shokane and daughter Flora Shokane allegedly benefited millions of rands after 9 people died mysteriously. The investigating officer Keshi Mabunda is expected to testify opposing the bail in the multi-million rand insurance murder case. Katlego reports.
In the previous appearance, the investigator in the case, Keshi Mabunda, told the court that whenever the insurance claims were paid, Kutumela and Anna Shokane would transfer funds to each other and to Flora Shokane and other family members. He further went on to say that Kutumela has since resigned from the South African Police Service. Kutumela's alleged insurance killing spree started in 2017. Investigations into the involvement of the accused other family members are ongoing. The bail application will now be held for 2 days. Katlego, SABC News in Polokwane.
The Australian airline Qantas says it's investigating a significant cyber attack after hackers infiltrated a system containing sensitive data on 6 million customers. It said there would be no impact on operations. The BBC's Phil Mercer has the details.
Qantas has apologised for the breach in security, the scale of which hasn't been made public. But the Australian airline says that some customers' names, email addresses, phone numbers and dates of birth have been stolen. Credit card and passport details weren't stored on the system that was infiltrated. The government's National Cybersecurity Coordinator is part of the investigation into what could be a huge cyber attack. Experts believe the notorious so-called scattered spider hacker group could be responsible.
Recapping the top story, the SAWA acting Johannesburg Mayor Kenny Kunene is expected to resume operations targeting hijacked buildings in the city's CBD today. Yesterday, Kunene and law enforcement officers raided a hijacked building in Marshalltown, which led to the arrest of over 40 undocumented foreign nationals. For SAFM News, I'm Cholani Tulongwebe.
There are routines we all love. Morning and night skincare routines, exercise routines, even new routines like meal prep, journaling, and chemo. That last one hit differently, didn't it? The truth is, over 99% of cervical cancer cases are linked to the human papillomavirus. So if you're a woman between 15 and 44, act now. Ask your healthcare provider about the HPV vaccine. This message was brought to you by MSD.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
The Algerians get it that a win is a good start to settle in a tournament. While the Southern African outfit, Botswana, is prepared to play their hearts out to open the WAFCON Group B curtain with maximum points. This is the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Catch the hot encounter between Algeria and Botswana, the Sunday 6 July at 8:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and S3. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Arts Festival is back. South Africa's biggest celebration of the arts is on. From the 26th of June to the 6th of July, Makhanda becomes the stage for South Africa's boldest theatre, dance, music, arts, comedy, and more. Experience the creative energy, markets, exhibitions, and many surprises. It's where the country comes to create and the world takes notice. Browse the program and book now at nationalartsfestival.co.za. Own it, celebrate it, be there.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.6 FM in Mthatha. The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to The Talking Point. Welcome to the second hour of the show. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be looking at Citizens Corner and really trying to understand the work that NGOs, local citizens have been put together and often do put together when responding to disasters and local crises that have been as a result of whether inclement weather or any other catastrophe that has been unplanned. We'll speak to a number of those organizations shortly. Before we do, lots of different responses to the conversation that we've had on the open line. I want to read some of the messages that have come through. This one comes from Anonymous, who says, "Hi, Kathy, I hear you. I agree with you. I sympathize with the Eastern Cape people, yet I still stand by the words. This is what they voted for. They could have done something different, but no, I really do hope they do different this time around." Yeah, look, that's the view that you hold. My sense, though, I think I was speaking just more broadly about the problems that we see at local government and why it is that we are unable to break some of these cycles of corruption, the networks of patronage that are now more and more leading to the victimization and killing of officials who are doing their job because of those complexities, right? People are losing their lives and yet it is not being adequately attended to. I want to read this message. It's from Litlogonolo Maichotlo in the northwest, but it's such a long message, Litlogonolo. I'm going to just read part of it. Litlogonolo says, in 2017, the SACP made a decision to contest the Metsimaholo by-elections in the Free State, and after the outcomes, they formed a coalition. Then the SACP obtained mayorship in that municipality. They implemented Section 12 and 16, which advocates for a collective power sharing system. And I'm making the example based on challenges faced by municipality, that even though you may have power, it is very difficult to influence policy directions of government because those that are leading have been captured by capital. In conclusion, we're contesting elections to assert our independence as a socialist organization committed to the interest of our people. So Litlogonolo there, very clearly an SACP member. And of course, just more messages from you confirming what our listener from Limpopo was saying about the state of Ramatlala and needing to bring on the Polokwane Mayor, John Mpe, to actually respond to what is happening in that part of the country. Let's take more of your WhatsApp voice notes and then we'll get into the rest of the show.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Good morning, Katie. The ANC must not undermine the capability of the SACP. They did so in the Free State, but they were surprised when the SACP won the municipality in Secunda. And the SACP is likely to win other municipalities come 2026. They must not undermine them. I'm Bafana Kumalo in Memel.
Good morning, Kathy. It's Mr. Suleiman. Yeah, in times of disaster, whether in South Africa or whether in other parts of the world, I take my hat out to the gift of the givers. They are always first ones there. Thank you. Bye.
Good morning, Osketi, Nolis Natsiang and Rosebank. Osketi, you know, this 7 million rand are transformed that was stolen in Pretoria. I think the police need to go deeper. You know, there's no way that our people can lay their hands on an asset that is worth 7 million, as if, you know, it's something you can just sell it. It's, combination of business people, your developers with municipal officials and high-ranking people for that transformer to be stolen. I mean, you don't just steal a transformer and sell it to who? So they must go deeper. It's incredible, Oskedi.
Good morning, Kathy. The ANC say they won't be Zoomified. Yeah, well, clever Gwede Mantashe and Blade Zimande. I think I won't be fooled by their political machinations. Is this not one of their schemes to sift out the people who feel disgruntled by the ANC? To sift out the dissidents from within the ANC? Thanks, Lionel Woodbank.
Good morning, Kathy. I think it's the best thing to do for the Communist Party to just leave the tripartite alliance. I am in full support of them. I will definitely vote for them. I've been waiting for this moment. It's just that they have entangled themselves with the African National Congress. So that made things very difficult for me to vote for them. Now I'm going to vote for them. Definitely sure. I think people will be able to vote for them if they try or do their best to canvass for the elections. Thank you very much, LMT Matlasana. Thank you.
Sawubona Mamasita. I've got a question for all the politicians. If they really care about this country, why don't they come together and fix it? Why don't you guys work together? I know you are listening. I know you are listening to this show. This is not about us anymore. It's about you and your family and your pockets. Mabatin Randbeck.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
They all believe they will be crowned champions, but gold medallions are reserved for the best of them all. It is the incredible clash of the 12 African women's national teams. Catch all the 24 matches of the Cap Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024 from 5 to 26 July 2025 on SABC Plus, S3, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC radio stations. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
You're still listening to The Talking Point as we lead conversations that move us. Today, and on Citizens Corner, we're looking at the role of citizens and in particular local NGOs when it comes to responding to any humanitarian crisis that may arise. Just recently, we have seen charities respond to the flood disaster in the Eastern Cape. The death toll, of course, is currently at 102, and it's after yet another body was recovered. Listening to what officials are saying about the situation in the Eastern Cape, it is likely that this toll will increase as there are still families who are looking for their loved ones. The disaster has been declared a national as a national disaster rather. So I want to introduce then some of the individuals who have been on the ground in Mthatha and who've also been contributing in different ways in parts of the country that have experienced humanitarian disasters before. Let me welcome to the show Ndosh Ndinisa Ndesi, who is the chairperson of the OR Tambo Civil Society Forum. Good morning, Ndosh. Good morning, Ndosh. All right, we seem to be having an issue with Ndosh's line. We'll try to get it back up running again. Zinhle Mbusi is a media personality in the Eastern Cape. Zinhle, good morning.
Good morning, Kathy, and good morning for your some listeners.
Betusile Mcinga is a gospel artist and founder of the Betusile Mcinga Foundation. Good morning to you.
Hi, good morning. All the listeners of the station.
Bonga Jezile is from Man Factor, leader for civil society. Bonga, good morning.
Good morning to you, to my colleagues over there, and to the listeners at home.
And just one last test again with Ndosh. Are you on the line this time, Ndosh?
Morning, everyone. My name is Ndomete Mandunisa Ndesi, District OR Tambo District Civil Society Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I think, we've got the details wrong in terms of the name that we've given out for you. I do apologize for that. So, firstly, often, and it's part of a conversation that came up in the open line. When we look at disasters that have happened and affect different parts of our country, the first point of call is often for government, right, to sort of say, what is the response of the government to this disaster? What is it that government can provide? And more, we see that there is not enough resources to go around. There often very much is a big gap in terms of what is needed versus what it is that government can provide. Betusile, would you say that you have seen this not only in the instance of Mthatha, but also in relation to the other work that you do and the need that you have to respond to?
Yes, I have witnessed that from other events that have been happening. You find that government cannot be able to provide for everything. So the need for NGOs like us then rises to come and fill in the gaps that are there. We are the NGOs that are there to serve our communities with whatever services that we provide. So we are always there to help where it's needed.
Betusile, what made you decide to start a foundation?
I started my foundation because I'm from the Eastern Cape, and you know that the Eastern Cape is one of the rural provinces. And as one of the rural provinces, my foundation is only based on supporting the school children who can't afford to go to school with necessary equipment that can help them to achieve that.
Claire, speak to me about the work that you have been doing.
For the disaster.
Yes, sorry, is it still Betusile on? Betusile, just hang on for me. I'm bringing Zinhle into the conversation now. Zinhle, if you can speak to me about the work that you've been doing, please.
Okay, thank you so much, Kathy. First of all, naturally I'm a giver. I took that from my mother because growing up, my mother was always helping people, the neighbors from the society. So the work that we do as the Ndlambuse Foundation, it started back in 2017, where we started helping the disadvantaged young girls with sanitary towels. So that's basically what mostly we've been doing as the Ndlambuse Foundation. we collect the sanitary towels through. Also, because I'm also a fitness fanatic, so everything that I do, I always include the kind of lifestyle that I live. So I do aerobics marathon every year, and also women empowerment programs. So through those programs, I always make it a point that we collect sanitary towels throughout the year, and then we go and distribute them to the schools. We've been doing that since 2017. And then currently I was already in the process of collecting blankets for the people that are living on the streets, because I thought this year, let me just do it differently, because those are the people as well, they also need assistance. They also need to be seen by us. So I decided to start this initiative of collecting blankets, because it was about to start being cold. While we were busy doing that, while we were busy in the process of collecting the blankets, and then the Mthatha disaster happened. So we decided to divert now the attention to Mthatha. Mthatha is my hometown. I am currently based in Cape Town, but Mthatha is my hometown. So I always do my events and my initiatives mostly there. So I decided that, you know what, let's divert now the course to the Mthatha disaster. About the disaster. So we decided to ask from the public, from the friends, to help us collect the blankets. We managed to collect about 50 blankets that we distributed sometime last week, Wednesday. I contacted Botusile, because Botusile has been very active on the ground. So we went to Mthatha. We distributed about 50 blankets and boxes of clothes that were contributed by the public, and mostly the friends that are close to us, and some of my FABC colleagues.
Thanks for that, Zinhle. It sounds like there's been quite a lot that you've been up to. Bonga, let me give you a chance to come in and perhaps speak to us about the work that you have been doing in this space.
All right. Thank you, Madam, once more. I'm Bonga Jezle from Civil Society Forum. Our part, or particularly in this disaster, is aligned with our goal, or our main aim to be on the space, is that while civil society under SANAC. So our primary goal is the adherence on the medication. We are there to make sure all those that are on medication, their adherence is not distorted. Now, after these floods have happened, remember, everyone, those who are affected, they lost everything. Their IDs, their homes, their medication inside, groceries and everything. So our main aim was there to make sure that the adherence is not distorted by making sure that we organize health services to be visible enough in terms of making sure that they supply the medication where it's necessary. That's one. Then in the process of doing that, we have noticed that we cannot say anyone must take the medication without having something to eat. In the process of us looking for something to eat, people, they need to have shelter. So fortunately, Botusile is working on the ground. Ms. Ndoshin Denisa is the chairperson in the district. Then we form this collective with one aim of making sure that our people will restore their dignity and all that it's a necessity for them to receive. They are receiving it without any challenges after the disaster has taken place.
Thanks for that. We're going to continue with this conversation shortly, and I'll also give the opportunity for more of our guests that haven't had a chance to come on to speak to us. But what I also want to know is, with South Africans, there'll often be a lot of talk on social media. So we're quite responsive in that way, where there's a situation that has unfolded and it is just heartbreaking. We'll all express that sentiment. Maybe not all, but a lot of people will express the sentiment of heartbreak. If it's outrage, people will be angry, they'll be outraged. And if it's a humanitarian disaster, we'll of course express that empathy as well. But does it translate into us then picking up the phone or getting in touch with organizations to offer real support? Or does it just end with we wish them well on social media and that's sort of the end of it? And I wonder then what it means for these organizations and their ability to respond and to help in times of need. It's now 10:30, time for your latest news headlines.
Good morning, I'm Jolani Tulongwebe making headlines. The African Transformation Movement, ATM, has expressed its disappointment over the Public Protector's refusal to probe alleged systematic failures enabling illicit financial flows from multinational companies. A 35-year-old suspect who is allegedly connected to the mass shooting that claimed the lives of 7 men in Gugulethu on the Cape Flats last weekend is due to appear in the Athlone Magistrates Court today. Police spokesperson Wesley Twigg says police are still searching for a second assailant in connection with that shooting. And finally, acting Johannesburg Mayor Kenny Kunene is expected to resume operations targeting hijacked buildings in the city's CBD today. Yesterday, Kunene and law enforcement officers raided hijacked buildings in Marshalltown, which led to the arrest of over 40 undocumented foreign nationals. Utsile Saku has the details at 11 o'clock for SFM News. I'm Jolani Tulongwebe.
Well, taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 17 rand 69 to the dollar, 24 rand 23 to the pound, and 20 rand 83 to the euro. Markets in Asia were mainly weaker at the closing bell. The JSE mixed in mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe are trading higher. Gold is trading at $3,335, platinum $1,355 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $67.13 a barrel.
Got a Standard Bank business account and self-service banking? You could win up to 5,000 Rand cash every day this week in the Standard Bank self-service quiz. SMS Standard Bank self-service to 45787 for a chance to be selected. Answer 2 easy questions about Standard Bank self-service banking to be a winner. Tune in every day this week on the Midday Link-Up to see if it's you. Standard Bank. It can be. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Are you ready to save even more on brands you love at Dis-Chem? The more you buy, the more you save when you stock up on selected Unilever personal care brands such as Vaseline, Dove, Lux, Pond's, Radox and more. Get 15% off when you buy 1 product, 20% off when you buy 2, and a massive 25% off when you buy 3. T's and C's apply. Hurry, Unilever deals end 13 July, only at Dis-Chem. Better health starts here.
Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
When leaders need to account, we call on them. When society needs to debate, reflect, and advance, we're here to have the conversation. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 to 12 midnight.
Couldn't switch your SASSA Gold card for the new Postbank Black Card? No worries, your SASSA Gold card is still valid and fully functional. You'll continue receiving your grants safely and securely. No need to change your card or switch banks. Use it at usual ATMs, retailers and spaza shop. Don't be misled by anyone claiming you must switch bank cards. Your money is safe with the Postbank, a bank where banking can be completely free. Stay informed and stay safe. Postbank, your bank.
The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Well, we continue the conversation on Citizens Corner, speaking with those that are running NGOs or involved with NGOs that often respond to needs within our community. Ntombe Themba, let me give you a chance to come in and speak to us about the work that you've been doing. Of course, you are based at the OR Tambo municipality.
Good morning to the viewers. As the
disaster started from past 2 weeks in our camp. It's a devastating thing that happened to us as in the state. As the civil society organization, which is a consist of all 18 sectors, we've tried our best to make sure that people are getting the services that they needed. As we work directly with the Department of Health, the services for clinical services, because remember, people, they don't have even their medication, they don't have even IDs, birth, and also other things that they need. So we made sure that all the sites that are sitting in will give the services for clinical services where the Department of Health will come and assist with the medication, and also for the people that are having flu, giving the medication for flu, even the children as for the immunization. And also having the department assisting with the IDs, those that lost their IDs, and also making sure that those services are rendered on those sites. So your Department of Home Affairs bringing their buses and bringing their staff with the buses and the staff to make sure that people do get their assistance from the beds and also the IDs. And also coordinating the stakeholders around the district and outside of the district, because there are people calling from outside the district wanting to assist. So we make sure that all those services and also the things that people are in need of, they get all of those things. And also making sure that they have food on their stomachs, so also having people that are assisting for those things. So we are working hand in hand with the collaboration of the foundations, as we have Bethusil and Omisi, and also having all these Norma Study assisting the community. Because what we did, we said this is needing all of us to make sure that our people are not suffering, even though there are some things that we cannot do as civil society, but we make sure that those things that we can manage to get to our people are getting those services and also the assistance they get.
Just listening to you describe it, I suppose in trenches, the idea of just what it takes for these families to be able to rebuild their lives from scratch, that they're going to need new identity documents, and without those IDs, it'll be very difficult to get anything done. If people have lost bank cards, they'll need those IDs. It'll basically facilitate what they're able to do. And it's such an important aspect that I think many of us wouldn't ordinarily think about when it comes to how these individuals then rebuild their lives. But Thusile, when you are making a call out to members of the public to support the work that you're doing, what are some of the responses that you are met with?
We receive different responses when we call out to the public to support initiatives like this. But I don't want to lie, for this one of this disaster, we have received a very positive response from the public. People have been willing to help, and people were sending clothes from all over South Africa, sending blankets, sending food. We have approached local businesses that sell groceries to come and donate so that we can install soup kitchens in each and every center. As you can understand that there are more than 1,000 people who are displaced, who have lost their homes. So Ntosh and other colleagues of ours have created all these centers, about 10 centers with plus 200 people in each center. So we had to make sure that they eat every day, they sleep comfortable, and they have heaters in those centers. So I think the community, the private sector, government, and churches responded when we called them for help, and people of Umtata are blessed to have organizations that can that are able to collaborate in a good cause.
And I often look at the fact that people are more willing to respond when there's an actual crisis unfolding versus when there's no crisis and yet you're calling for support to ensure that on a day of crisis you're able to intervene. Yes, it might not always be on the same scale, but there's work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis and that also needs support.
I think it's time now, maybe as communities, businesses, and government will try to make sure that we equip the local organizations with the necessary tools to respond in disasters like this. We should start doing that intentionally without doing it because there is a disaster. But they should be able to function on behalf of government and on behalf of the authorities, you know. If you say, for instance, our colleague Jezile was speaking about the medication that needed to be distributed in all those centers as people lost everything. So us, as organizations that deals with that, we should be able to have those medications on our disposal so that when it comes to distributing them by the time of disaster, we don't just start by calling people to supply us. We have something in store so that we can give to people who are needy at that moment, you know. So I feel the private sector and government need to fund more of the local organizations to be able to stand alone and be able to supply the needs of the community.
Zinhle, what is it that you would say you have learned about working in communities and the way in which there is this great need that if you're not the one in need of a particular service or a particular thing, it might be easy for you to sort of disconnect with what not having this thing might mean and how it might impact your life. So being able to see these families, being able to see perhaps even, the young teenage girls that you distribute sanitary pads to, what is it that you have learned that you can share with us that might perhaps invoke something different to help people want to get up on their feet and to contribute?
Thank you so much, Ms. Kathy. First of all, I think we need to, as Betusile was saying, we need to be intentional about Ubuntu. As I've said earlier on when I was starting my conversation with you, that I've learned Ubuntu from my parents. So I think I would love to emphasize more on us as South Africans being kind and exercising Ubuntu. Seskese, on these initiatives that I do, you go there to these schools thinking that you are only providing these necessities to the kids. But when you get there, you find out that people are suffering. Our people are really suffering. People are suffering from poverty. There's a school that we ended up adopting in Tata, a primary school, because we realized that there are kids that still go to school without having anything on their stomachs. There are kids that don't have uniform. So it went from just providing sanitary towels to end up providing uniform, to end up providing meals for these kids. Hence, we decided to at least adopt, for now, one school because we don't have any official support. So what I've learned throughout these initiatives that I do is that we need to be more intentional about exercising Ubuntu, umuntu ngabantu, as we say, and also the significance of e-blanket as we were distributing these the blankets to the people. is not only about providing warmth, but it's also about providing comfort. It's also about giving dignity. In our culture, in everything that we do, if they go, in fact, even before they're gonna buy him a new blanket. When Ebuhuya, they're gonna buy him a new blanket. Umakoti, she's going to be gifted with a new blanket. So a blanket as in Jambose Foundation in a significance enayo. When I was I'm a hugger, every time when I greet you, I'm gonna give you a hug. So as I was greeting all those people, giving them hugs, most of them my heart sank for a moment. All of them were saying, oh, only if we knew how much we needed these hugs. So it means what we need more than anything is to provide Ubuntu, is to be there for our people. The fact that you are blessed enough to be where you are, it means don't ever forget where you come from. So we appreciate Abazali Betu for teaching us Ubuntu. And also I'm fortunate enough to also work for the station that talks more of Ubuntu. When we talk about Umhlobo, we talk about a friend. So also it's one of the things that are contributing to Uzinhle having Ubuntu. So more than anything, says Kefi, Ubuntu is what we need. Ukukhumbula that umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu is what we need.
Thank you so much for that, Zinhle. And you couldn't have put it better, right? That it's about that human solidarity, and that's ultimately what ends up making a difference. Bonga, NGOs, at least to some level, are almost expected to have a clear line into corporate, because we know corporate will talk about their CSI contributions, and yes, they have to get involved in the community. But speak to me about that process and how easy or difficult it is to get official support from corporate, and to what extent then this also should motivate or encourage ordinary citizens to get involved in solving the problems that exist within the localities.
All right. Okay. Thanks, ma'am. Firstly, let me start by saying it needs to have a passion. It must be passion-driven, because remember our name, it's non-profit organizations. So we are here not to make profit. However, we need funding for us to drive the programs that are there to develop our communities, that are there to make sure that human rights are being taken off for our people, that are there to restore the dignity. Now, in terms of the NPO struggling to be in this world that we are talking about, all small NGOs would have a common challenge that they're facing in terms of, allow me to say, the red tapes. Because you'd find out that more than the passion, more than the willingness that they're having, the vision for them on each community, when they saw a problem, they design a problem-solving statement. But in terms of the requirement for the one to be in the position of being funded, they're too high. Their requirements are too high. They expect you to have everything before they come and inject some funds into your organization so that you can start to be able to move. Now, that's why you would see that there are few big organizations that are there being known, because all those that they've managed to meet requirements is as if now it's only them that are qualifying. Those who are not yet be in a position of receiving or in a position of qualifying, they would struggle because there's too much requirements upon themselves. Each funder would want to say, we want you to see your previous 3-year financial statement, and you would find out that there are certain NGOs or NPOs that are on the ground working, but they don't have funds even to maintain their bank account. Sometimes others, they do have a bank account. After some time it closed because all the banks that are charging once you have an account with them. So I believe those are the challenges that are there. If all the sponsors or funders can try to make requirements simpler into an extent that are there for emerging organizations, even if they will be supporting organizations through the funding that is still with them, but via that particular organization, so that all the local organizations can grow to a level that everyone is in there. Because the danger of not investing to local organizations is that when the contract ends, all big organizations, you'd find out those that are servicing Umtata are not based here. So when their contract expires, they pack their bags and go and leave our society with the need because they are not there. And again, it's only then that all small organizations would be there in circumstances like this, because everyone now is pushing with a passion. But if they have all resources, they were going to make much more difference by now. Thank you.
Thank you for that very honest reflection. And Ntombe Themba, then, I wonder what it is that you think NGOs like yourselves can do. What is it that you can do to have members of the public trust you a bit more, maybe even your corporates to trust you more, without necessarily expecting that people are necessarily formalized in the way that they expect, when we know that many NGOs in our communities are not necessarily functioning out of lots and lots of money. So even the cost of being formalized sometimes becomes a barrier, because they're just unable to get through the process.
Okay, ma'am. I want to repeat what Mr. Jesu said, because I think the reality is based on the community organization. When we talk of community-based organization, we're talking of the community organization that's coming from that area. Because what is happening, the big organization will come with a big funding and then give a duration, which is like a year. After that, they just disappear, leaving the people and the beneficiaries not being attended. So we're advocating that every grant that is coming to the district, regardless of the OR sub or other district, it must be based on the community-based organizations that are coming from those areas, so that we'll be able to sustain the program. Because remember, if someone is coming here to implement a program of gender-based violence, when that person moves, the program doesn't, the beneficiaries don't understand the fact that they are moving away from them without being assistance. So we are advocating that government and the private sectors to make use of the community-based organizations, so that the program stays and we integrate those programs with the programs that are currently done by our organizations. Not bringing people outside from the district so that they implement with the money. They don't understand the program, because what mistake they make, they bring the people already with those organizations, not checking how is the district working. So we're advocating on the civil society that everyone must be based on those areas before anything happens, and also the capacity building must be provided to the organizations, so that they will be able to sustain programs with the few money that they have. Because one of the challenges that the big companies come without doing the capacity building, and they will say you don't have this document, but they need to teach people how to do those documents. So it's based on the funding. Everything needs money to be capacitated, because you cannot be having a capacity without having funds or having a money as a community-based organization. So we're advocating that people trust the organizations that are coming from those areas, not organizations coming from outside the district to implement programs. Because remember, we have our cultural diversity in our areas. So it's best that we use those ones that understand those cultures. And also, when it comes to the people to be employed, we need to interview people that are coming from those localities. They understand how is it working with their communities, because in the OR Sabo district, it's basically talking about chiefs. So when you talk with the chiefs and use English, it's not, they don't understand how are you speaking English with the communities if you are not speaking their language. So it's good that when we are outside, we bring in the people that are already understanding our diversity and the cultures. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, there are just so many different nuances that a conversation like this can bring up. And I guess it gives us something to think about the next time we see a disaster. And it's about who are the people responding? What are the needs that are being met? But can we go beyond just meeting the need? You know, and Nothemba saying we actually need to understand that sometimes by responding in the way that we are, we're not necessarily fully attending to the needs of the community. In some instances, there might be offense caused, not intentionally so, but simply because if you're not from an area, if you don't understand, again, the cultural nuances there could be things that you say or how you do things that may rub the community up the wrong way. And that creating that offense then often might also lead to tension, even though nobody intended to do any harm. Betusile, let me then come back to you and ask you if there was something that you would say to those that are listening to this conversation today about how they can support local NGOs. What is it?
Firstly, I would say, just to add on what Sisindosh was saying, as local organizations, we know the groundwork, we know the cultures, we know where people are, we know their needs, we know how to address their needs. So I think mostly what we need more is being given funds and capacity to do the groundwork, because we are already in those communities and serving in those communities. For instance, now during the disaster, you would find that most organizations that are coming outside with funds, that are coming outside with help, they don't really know where these people are and how are they staying in those places, and they don't understand their needs at the moment, you know. So that's where we come in. So I believe if we can have programs that will participate the organizations out there, so that they are able to function fully on their own without being assisted by the big organizations. So, and two, I would say government needs to run some workshops on the issue that Mr. Chelsea raised of the paperwork and the administration of the organizations, because sometimes we start these organizations based on the passion of helping people, but we really don't have a knowledge of how to register them and how to run them professionally to meet the standards and the expectations of the government and also the private sector. So maybe we need to have those programs to teach the local organizations how to be run and what is expected from them, and also try to cut the red tapes that are there and that makes them not to be functional enough.
All right, thank you for that. Bonga, do you want to give a parting shot before we wrap this conversation up? You've got 30 seconds.
No, my last words, thank you, madam, is to say, as people of Umtata are still in need of support, all those that they can support for us, particularly for the disaster, not to us but through us for disaster, it's still more than welcome.
As you know, the contacts of Mr. Mcinga, all those that they wish to have something, please, they must do donate, because the challenge that we're facing, we also want to bury those that baswelekileyo through this disaster with the dignity. Thank you so much.
And it's just an example of how we can get together in different ways. If all you can do is donate a blanket, then go ahead and donate that blanket, because next time these organizations will be able to donate perhaps 70 instead of 50 blankets, maybe even 100, depending on how many of us choose to get involved. And you can multiply that with groceries, with clothes, with any other items that they may need. It really is a push to say there's something that we can do. Instead of relying on government, instead of looking at the big corporates who will let us down from time to time, what is it that we have in our own hands that we can share with others? On that note, it's 11 o'clock. Here's your latest news update.
Top stories at 11 o'clock. The ATM reacts to public protector's refusal to probe multinational companies, and operations on hijacked Joburg buildings continue. For SAFM News, I'm Utsile Saku. Good morning. The African Transformation Movement, ATM, has expressed its disappointment over the public protector's refusal to probe alleged systemic failures enabling illicit financial flows by multinational companies. In February, ATM MP Vuyelwethu Zungula lodged a complaint, accusing several government ministries and regulatory bodies of failing in their oversight responsibilities, resulting in the ongoing outflow of billions of rands from South Africa. According to Zungula, the public protector Koleka Gcaleka said the complaint was not specific and framed too broadly to warrant an investigation.
When she was asked to investigate what are the failures in the system that enable establishment to sell fake foods that have killed our children, that complaint was widely accepted. That is why there's an ongoing investigation. But this one, because it involved multinational companies, it involved mining companies, of which it is the big political players or people are politically connected, it gives an impression that she is fearful of investigating such powerful players. That is why she was rejecting it.
A 35-year-old suspect who is allegedly connected to the mass shooting that claimed the lives of 7 men in Gugulethu on the Cape Flats last weekend is due to appear in the Athlone Magistrates Court today. Police spokesperson Wesley Twigg says the police are still searching for a second assailant in connection with the shooting. The victims, aged between 26 and 30, were socializing in the kitchen when they were ambushed by unknown assailants. The DA in the Eastern Cape has raised questions over the alleged expenditure of 8 million rand on a sports field in Krakil in the Kokama municipality. The party has requested a breakdown of the expenditure from the Sports, Art and Culture Minister, Gayton McKenzie. In the department's reply to the DA, it said that it was not aware of any investigations regarding any irregularities with this specific project. The DA's constituency leader, Henny Brits, says according to their observations, the work done on the stadium does not add up to the expenditure.
Answers that I've received from the Minister was that 8 million rand was spent on the renovation at this facility. Now what you see was pre-existing. There was a sport field, there was a clubhouse, and there was a multi-purpose court. So the renovations alone costed 8 million, according to the Minister. I've asked follow-up questions to request details of how the money was spent. If you look at around, the question must be asked, did we receive value for money for 8 million rand?
Meanwhile, the acting municipal manager, Mlamli Zenzile, says the contractor delivered the project in accordance with the scope of the work specified in the tender document.
It has been brought to my attention that Mr. Brits claims that the project included the construction of 400-seater grandstand, the upgrading of combi courts, along with the clubhouse, and installation of irrigation system. Upon reviewing the original tender document which contains the design concept of the Crackle sport fields, I can confirm that the irrigation system was indeed part of the scope of works.
Acting Johannesburg Mayor Kenny Kunene is expected to resume operations targeting hijacked buildings in the city's CBD today. Yesterday, Kunene and law enforcement officers raided a hijacked building in Marshalltown, which led to the arrest of over 40 undocumented foreign nationals. The operations are part of a revitalization plan approved by the mayoral committee in March as a coordinated effort to reclaim the inner city. Kunene elaborates.
The purpose was to enforce bylaws, but also to disconnect illegally connected electricity and water. And indeed, we achieved that. EMS has prepared a report after they did an assessment that the building is unsafe, the building is uninhabitable, and therefore the people must be evacuated. So we will go back to the building. I'm meeting with the MMC of Social Development to see if there's alternative shelter where we can then evacuate South Africans to.
And finally, several Swiss authorities have thrown a funding lifeline to the International Red Cross and Red Crescent Museum in Geneva. For decades, it received support from the Swiss Foreign Ministry, but this was cut last year when responsibility shifted to the Culture Ministry. New funding has come from the Canton of Geneva. Recapping the top stories, the African Transformation Movement, ATM, has expressed its disappointment over the Public Protector's refusal to probe alleged systemic failures enabling illicit financial flows by multinational companies. I'll be back with headlines at 11:30.
The National Arts Festival is back. South Africa's biggest celebration of the arts is on. From the 26th of June to the 6th of July, Makhanda becomes the stage for South Africa's boldest theatre, dance, music, arts, comedy, and more. Experience the creative energy, markets, exhibitions, and many surprises. It's where the country comes to create and the world takes notice. Browse the program and book now at nationalartsfestival.co.za. Own it, celebrate it, be there.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 106.2 FM in Tanin. The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday. Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Good morning, Kathy, and your team. Happy Madiba month. Kathy, the thing of SACP and ANC, it is already started there in Matlosana. The SACP member, they are not sharing the meeting with us, the ANC. How can you want to share the meeting with us? You know you're sabotaging us because of SACP. When they campaign, they take people from the ANC. We're busy fighting the bigger elephant there, the trust of Jacob Zuma. So they are busy trying to contest the election. And when we check, most of the members of SACP, we give them the position in ANC. So we are struggling after that. The person who's supposed to assist you, he's also fighting too. Man, come on, SACP. The thing we need to stop before it's going too far. Nah, man. SACP. Even I hear Sanko want to contest the election. There is a parallel structure in Sanko.
Hello, Kathy. Yeah, look, I'm one of the people who are happy for the SACP now that they've finally called it quits. You know, they've been making a lot of noise that they've been bullied in this marriage. Now that they've called it quits, they must go out there and test the waters. We're going to support them, we're going to vote for them. Because the ANC will never change. The ANC has always been like this.
they've got a tendency of bullying the others whenever they're in a coalition arrangement. And I remember the words of the former President Mbeki, and I'm quoting him verbatim, when he said, the ANC was never voted into power to push the agenda of the SACP and COSATU. That caused an outcry within the alliance. So that's the ANC for you. They must go out there and test the waters. We're going to vote for them. Thank you.
Good morning, Kathy. Your previous caller, Eddie, had some good points. But the problem is that the DA joining the ANC in this GNU, they did so knowing, yes, that the ANC are corrupt, but hoping that once they're in this GNU, they can put pressure on the ANC to change their policies and change their tactics and get rid of fraud and corruption. That was the idea. Now they get criticized for joining the GNU, where they're putting pressure on the ANC. I think it's high time that the people understand that. Mike from Hillcrest and KZN.
Hi, good morning, Katie, and your producer and all the listeners of SAFM. Katie, I like to talk regard to ask the ANC, because when they come to us, giving us the T-shirt, promise us different things that is going to give us the job, all those things. So I want to know, where is those jobs? Because when I see ANC is not owning even firms, it's not owning even mines, I don't know, where is those jobs actually, like serious? That is my concern that I want to know. Where is those jobs? Because youth and majority of youth is not working, and some of them, he's a graduate, but we don't have any job. Where is those jobs? Mr. President, I want to know seriously. That is my concern here from Cape Town. Thank you.
Good morning, Katie. I am Jagatayo in Govimvawa. I'm concerned about this thing of national dialogue that is going to cost the country 700 million rands. Yesterday or today, the petrol is up because of that war that is between Iran, Palestine, and Israel. I don't think this thing of national dialogue, especially after we have been told about the money that is going to be spent, it is necessary. It needs to be opposed by the GNU parties, beside the ANC that doesn't even care about wasteful expenditure. Thanks, Takatayo.
Good morning, Katie. I'm Svito in Guatemala. It will be the end of SACP because their existence is ceremonial anyway. They are practically non-existent on the ground. Thank you.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation.
The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Well, we're continuing with our Money Matters series that has been brought to you by Nedbank Insurance. And the Money Matters campaign is about how Nedbank Insurance can help you find relevant insurance solution for every stage in life. Today, we're joined by Mercedes Hare, who's the Head of Sales and Services at Nedbank Insurance. Mercedes, good morning to you. Thanks for your time this morning.
Good morning, Kathy. So nice to be with your listeners.
Yeah, Mercedes, I'm going to ask you just to try and move around a bit as well. That connection to you isn't great, but hopefully it'll get better as we get into the rest of our conversation. Look, insurance is a topic not everybody likes to talk about and often referred to as a grudge purchase. And as we get into our second series of this particular installment, financial literacy is one of the issues that is a challenge in our country. Firstly, give us a sense of what is the state of affairs? How bad is our financial literacy? And are we finding that it's getting any better with time?
Kathy, great question. And hopefully you and the listeners can hear me a little bit more clearly. You know, Kathy, financial literacy in South Africa has historically always been quite poor. What we are seeing, though, is definitely amongst the younger generation in South Africa, that younger generation is becoming so much more financially literate. And that's largely because of the digital tools, because of social media, the information that is effectively flowing more easily in society and is becoming much more transparent. Even if we look at a program like yours, Money Matters, so important for us in the industry because it really helps to make what is often quite complex information easily relatable, practical, and easily understood by customers. And it makes them more familiar with the products, makes it more familiar with what insurance effectively can do for them. And so literacy then actually improves. And it improves through that education that effectively flows, as I say, through society, through social media, through digital tools, through the media, which we're seeing quite a lot of in recent times.
Mercedes, when we talk about financial literacy, what are we really referring to? Because I think it could mean a number of things, right? But when one is considered to be financially literate, what are the things or the concepts that they would be expected to perhaps know or even understand?
You know, Kathy, I often think that the industry is a little bit behind in terms of how we actually help to educate customers and the role that we as industry need to play. And the way that I often think about it is as winter comes along, I may or may not remember that I need to have a flu shot. But as I move down the roads, I listen to programs on the radio, I look at advertising, there is no way that I can miss out on everybody telling me, get your flu shot. And that's my reminder that I need to do it. And part of that reminder is what is the value of the flu shot. You know, I avoid potentially getting sick in winter or as sick as I would have gotten had I not had the flu shot. And I think for me, very simply put, that is what financial literacy is. If I'm able to easily understand, if we're talking about insurance, why should I have insurance? What is the value of it? Why is it important for me and my family? That is as simple as what financial literacy should be. It's not about being able to go through the T's and C's, understand the policy documentation. It is simply, why is it of value for me and why should I actually have it?
That's such a great analogy there, Mercedes. I'm not going to forget it, not for a while anyway. If we're looking at some of the work that has been done and the research that has been done, there are, of course, suggestions that older people find insurance too expensive. And this would often be at the time that they need it the most, paying for insurance for at least most of their life. How can we begin to change this, especially by looking at how we approach the conversation around insurance at different stages of our lives?
And so I think the conversation is quite important in terms of what type of insurance are you looking at and when are you looking at it in your life? So if we take something like life insurance, for example, if I'm in my 20s, my 30s, or my 40s, it is a much better time for me to be buying life insurance. Why? Because I'm a much healthier person. And so often in insurance, we're relating risk to the price that we need to pay. And we're thinking naturally, as I get older, I am potentially more risky to be insured because as I get older, maybe my health deteriorates. And so some of those payouts that would be required are greater. But actually, when I'm younger, I'm much healthier. And so my premiums are less. And so again, if we actually go to customers, often in our 20s and our 30s, we're thinking to ourselves, oh, I'm not going to buy insurance. I'm not going to buy life insurance. Nothing is ever going to happen to me. I'm sure we can all relate to that. But that's the time when insurance is cheapest for you because you actually have the lowest risk. So the best thing that we can do is effectively drive that conversation that says that at the age and the time that you think you need at least, actually that is the very best time for you to actually be buying insurance and taking it out.
The difficulty though, Mercedes, is that you don't necessarily get a rebate when you're older that recognizes that you were paying insurance from when you were young. So how do we work around that? Because it also perhaps could be what leads to this perception of insurance being a grudge payment, that you're constantly just having to pay, but waiting for some form of eventuality before you could ever benefit.
I think the thing for me, Kathy, is we really do need to have the conversation about the grudge purchase. Because if we were to think slightly differently and thinking that I'm actually paying in order to be protected if something happens in the future or in the present, and I can actually see the value that comes from that, I can identify that value, then my sense of this being a grudge purchase starts to change. And the way I often like to think about it is if we just think how excited we are about that first car that we buy. And it doesn't matter if it's the brand new Mercedes or the brand new Ferrari, or if it is a little second-hand Kadonk that we're buying. We are so excited. That's our car, and that enables so much in our lives. It enables us to move easily from point A to B. It enables us to go for interviews, to work. So imagine if now I don't have my car. I've had an accident. My car is written off. My car needs to go in for very, very expensive repairs that I actually can't afford. Suddenly, the thing that I was thinking of as being a grudge purchase actually becomes of extreme value to me. And I think often when people are thinking about their most important assets, so here I'm talking about a car, but think about that house that you buy as well. And again, you're thinking about that incredible excitement when you actually buy your first home. If I'm thinking, I actually need to make sure I've got enough money every month, not just for my home loan, for my bond, not just to pay for the vehicle repayments every month, but I also need to make sure that I've got money for my insurance. And how might I think about that? Maybe I actually buy a slightly cheaper house. Maybe I buy a slightly cheaper car. So I do actually have those available funds every month to cover my insurance payments. And so the grudge changes from money that I'm actually somehow losing every month to pay for insurance, but rather it shifts in my thinking to if something were to happen to this asset, this vehicle, this house that I was so excited about, how bad would I feel? And the insurance premium that I'm paying is to actually protect me in case anything happens to my most important asset. For me, Kathy, the conversation is around shifting our mindsets, actually from grudge to value.
You talk about how in order to perhaps manage some of these costs, cheaper car, cheaper house, but in this aspirational age that we're in, Mercedes, that's not an option that many are willing to consider, especially if it's just to ensure that they're able to take on an insurance product. And I wonder how much of that then also comes down to the financial literacy aspect of things, that, we're in an age that just encourages spending all the time. And we're not always necessarily thinking about our future. We're not always necessarily thinking about how we protect ourselves.
And again, Kathy, I think it's so important. It comes down to education, and I think it's the role that insurers like Nedbank Insurance and the industry need to actually play in terms of creating that education. You're so right. I mean, as I say the words that I say, I'm thinking about the glam and the glitz. I'm thinking about where we're going for dinner tonight, what we're doing this weekend, am I going shopping with my friends? And that's always where we're thinking about any expendable money that we have. We want it to go on those nice to haves that we all enjoy so much. But I do think that the role that we need to play is, again, linking back to saying, you were so excited about buying this car. You were so excited about buying the house. But part of the enjoyment and part of the excitement is actually in being able to retain it. And retaining it is what actually does happen if there was a flood, if there was a fire, if there's a geyser that breaks. If something material happens to that asset, I actually need to be able to retain it. Maybe I lose my job, I lose my income. And so I think the role that we need to play is around that financial literacy that goes, if you're willing to spend a certain amount of money every month on a house, for example, what happens if you spend just a little bit less, and the balance you make sure you're actually able to pay towards protecting this valuable asset? You see it as part of your home cost. You see it as part of your motor cost. You don't see it as something in addition to. I think it's our job to try and create that literacy.
It's an interesting proposition, Mercedes, and I'd be very keen to hear from our listeners. Based on what you're hearing from Mercedes, would you consider a cheaper house, a cheaper car, so that you're able to also have those assets insured and make sure that you're protected for any eventuality? Is there something practical as you listen? And of course, you're listening as a potential client, right? If you're not already on some kind of insurance product or using some or other kind of insurance product. The insurance industry, Mercedes, is also changing in that before it was up to financial advisors to help clients who needed these kind of products. But now lots of services are going online. Speak to us about these changes.
It's exactly right. I mean, the landscape actually changed dramatically. And whilst financial is still a critical role, especially when we're looking at complex insurance needs, we do find that most customers are preferring to go digitally. And I think the reason for it is digital is whenever you need it. You know, it's 24/7, it's that Sunday afternoon, it's that Wednesday night. That's often when customers are starting to shop for their financial services solutions, or they're wanting to start comparing prices, and they're just really wanting to know more. So digital self-service becomes absolutely critical. And so at Nedbank Insurance, I mean, what we've really done is we've embraced the shift towards digital, and our solutions are all available on what we call the Nedbank Money app. So it's very easy for customers to go and find them and shop for them. But equally, we've also still got financial advisors, because we recognize that although customers have moved and are continuing to move towards digital self-service, very often they still actually just want to speak to a human, have a conversation, check some information, or alternatively, if we are seeing complex needs, complex insurance needs, then we typically don't have the digital journeys yet that are built out to actually support those complex insurance requirements. I think what we also think, if I can, in the digital transformation in that landscape, we're seeing things becoming a lot more personalized. And we're seeing companies like ourselves and others effectively moving from something that is for all to actually becoming more personalized and targeted in the offers that we're actually able to put in front of customers digitally.
What is it that you would advise potential clients to do? Are there any risks of opting to just pursue your insurance products individually without getting the advice of a broker or financial advisor?
I think that there's so much information that is out there online at the moment. My suggestion to anybody would be, first, be very clear why you think you need insurance. Hey, you know that you're looking for this insurance either to protect your debts, protect your home, protect your motor vehicle, whatever it might be for your personal needs. Then do a little bit of shopping around, do a little bit of Googling. You know, see who the providers are, see what's on offer. Start almost educating yourself a little bit around not only price points, but benefits. So I think we all sometimes just look for the cheapest price, but the cheapest price doesn't necessarily always meet your needs, and you'll feel it the most at claim stage. So do a little bit of Googling, make sure that what it is that you are looking for and what you're buying is actually matching up. And then go through the digital journeys. Certainly for Nedbank Insurance, you're able to go through those digital journeys and get right to the end before you actually press the buy button. And there's quite a lot that is available for you through those journeys around educating yourself on the solutions, what they provide, what they do, and the price points. So the risk for the customer is really quite limited. up until the point that you actually purchase that solution, really what you're doing is you're just shopping.
Mercedes, let me thank you so much for your contribution to this conversation. It's been great having you on, talking insurance, your money matters. And of course, this particular series has been brought to you by Nedbank Insurance. And that's where we leave it for this half hour. It's now 11:30, time for your latest news headlines.
And in the headlines, interviews for the position of Deputy Chief Justice are underway in Sandton, Johannesburg. President Cyril Ramaphosa has nominated 3 candidates: Gauteng Judge President Dunstan Mlambo, Free State Judge President Kegni Musi, and Northern Cape Judge President Pule Tlalezi. The African Transformation Movement has expressed its disappointment over the Public Protector's refusal to probe alleged systemic failures enabling illicit financial flows by multinational companies. And the Iranian president has formally signed into law a bill suspending Tehran's cooperation with the UN nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency. Details at 12 o'clock.
The Teranga Lionesses know the importance of a win in their WAFCON opener. However, the Congolese also have their undivided attention on 3 points. This is the Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Do not miss out on Senegal versus Democratic Republic of Congo this Sunday, 6 July at 3:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport DTT Channel 4. Then at 4 p.m. on S3 and SABC radio stations. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Nelson Mandela once said, "There can be no greater gift than that of giving one's time and energy to helping others without expecting anything in return."
What's your Mandela Day game plan this year? Why not lace up those sneakers and hit the ground running at our annual Mandela Day Walk and Run on July 19th at the DP World Wanderers Stadium, Ilovo. You can walk 5Ks, run 10 and 21Ks, and still have enough energy to have fun. It's a whirlwind of fun and laughter, all for a fantastic cause. Every cent goes to support the excellent work of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Enter on mandeladay.com or register for the virtual race on fundnation.org/Nelson Mandela. See you there.
The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Our final conversation for the day here on The Talking Point is our G20 series with Lerato Tsebe. Lerato, good morning to you.
Good morning, Kathy, and good morning to your listeners. How are you today?
Doing well. Yet another week and more developments. For this week, we'll look at the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation and the Deputy Minister of Finance. They're all in Seville, Spain for the Forum for Finance for Development, FF4D. What is this forum and how does it relate to our G20 agenda?
Kathy, first of all, let me say this was the meeting that the president skipped to be able to deal with the GNU tensions. Now, the FF4D is essentially, it's the world's foremost development dialogue. It's only held once every 10 years. It's essentially trying to pursue sustainable funding for the SDGs, and it's a platform where all governments and international and regional organizations, financial and trade institutions, business, civil society, and UN systems, essentially, they all come together and try to foster stronger international cooperation to deal with matters of financing SDGs, debt alleviation. They talk about, all kinds of issues pertaining to financing development initiatives, essentially at all levels. And also, most importantly, this is also an arena where people gather to support reforms of international financial architecture. At this meeting that's still ongoing as we speak, we did, Kathy, have a rather interesting development that has happened, which is that, of course, the Americans were once again marked firmly absent from this very important development meeting. The US essentially is the United Nations, one of the United Nations' largest financiers. Why this is important, Kathy, is that the SDGs are essentially running their course. And per annum, the SDGs at current, the US wants to curtail a $4 trillion financing gap for the SDG that involves commitments from them. So this is a bit of a big problem for the United Nations, as this now leaves the other countries that are members of the UN broader system to essentially have to pick up the tab. Now, $4 trillion is obviously not chalk and cheese, so I can imagine there's some very serious conversations that are happening in Spain right now. On our behalf as South Africa, this mattered to us as we were supposed to be hosting a parallel session, or the president rather, with the Spanish government. However, Minister Ronald Lamola did step in for the president, and he did deliver a keynote address for the SA and Spain joint event. He delivered a speech on the panel about forging a common agenda to achieve debt sustainability. Also present, Kathy, was Minister Ramokgopa in the presidency. She sat on a panel on discussing sustainable development finance for gender equality. The most interesting person, I think, or rather the person at the most interesting meeting, was the Deputy Finance Minister. He held a meeting, or rather he was part of a panel, and he joined South Africa joined Spain and Brazil in now backing what they are calling the Sevilla platform, which is to tax the ultra-rich and to build fairer, more global systems. Now, this is essentially what's going to become a new UN tax convention, or rather an extension of it. So I think Minister Masonda has had the most interesting meeting thus far.
Lerato, just a minor observation. One would have thought that the confirmation from the US President Donald Trump that he will be at November's meeting of the G20 heads of state would also mean that the US would slowly begin to make an appearance at some of these significant meetings. It doesn't seem to be the case. Should South Africa be worried about that?
Look, Kathy, I think there's room for concern, rather. Yesterday, you must remember, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio finally and officially ended the closure of the USAID program, with many people within the United States, both Democrat and Republicans, decrying this move, saying that the closure of USAID will lead to the deaths of millions of people. Even just in relation to this Forum for International Development, Kathy, let me just tell you, earlier on in April, all member states received a copy of what they call the Seville Commitment. At the end of each of these meetings that transpire every 10 years, there is some sort of declaration or commitment that is reviewed halfway, and this one was the Seville Commitment. Now, the US has already made 400 amendments to this 38-page document on financing for development. I think there is room for concern in feeling a bit anxious as a country that the United States may or may not, more importantly, show up at November's Heads of State meeting. But the real question now becomes whoever's supposed to host the G20 next needs to be prepared in case the United States decides not to host their G20 meeting next year. In any instance, Kathy, we must remember that South Africa will now also remain a member of the Troika in the same way that Brazil is a member of the Troika. As they hosted the G20 last year, we will be a Troika member next year.
unfortunately, that sense of the US still being on the fence does, it leads one to ask more questions just in terms of the certainty around that commitment. While the Kruger National Park, not a bad venue, it's hosting the third G20 technical meeting on the empowerment of women. What's on the agenda there outside of waking up in the beautiful African safari?
This isn't, you must remember, this is not part of the engagement group for W20. I think a lot of the recommendations that are transpiring at this technical meeting are going to form part of the W20 reviewing the Beijing Plus 20. Essentially, remember I said there's two reviews that are happening this year. There's one for the G20 at 20 and there's W20 at 10. So a lot of these commitments that or the deliberations that are transpiring in the beautiful Kruger National Park are going to transpire later on. Minister Chikunga is there along with other DGs, and I believe there's a Deputy Minister in the Presidency is also there. She's outlined 3 key priorities so far for this meeting, which is that she wants to focus on paid and unpaid care work and access to to quality jobs rather, and more importantly to women's economic advancement is what the ministry is saying there. So that's what is also, it's also I think very much, Kathy, consistent with their own theme as the heads of the W20 engagement group. So that is what they are deliberating in the Kruger National Park right now.
All right, and perhaps to wrap it up then for this week, an important session taking place in Brazil this weekend. It's the BRICS Head of State Summit. Oh, this is going to be to keep a close eye on. So much has happened in the last 12 months. Of course, I wonder if there'll be any more talks of a currency, how exactly the heads of state are going to manage this engagement without, what shall I say, ticking anybody off on the other side of the world.
Indeed, Kathy. This is going to be a very interesting meeting this weekend, and I'll tell you why. Brazil has obviously, their theme for this year, for their presidency, is partnerships for social and economic and environmental development. They are saying that they're guided by strengthening global South cooperation for more inclusive and sustainable governance. That's all very wonderful. This will be a very charged meeting by virtue of the fact that you must remember that we are not just BRICS anymore. We are indeed BRICS Plus. And one of the BRICS Plus members has had their territorial sovereignty invaded, and that being Iran. There's a very serious deliberation that has been going on between Iran, Russia, and China about forming some sort of security access on that side of the world as a consequence of Israel's invasion of Iran about 2 weeks ago. The members of BRICS did release a statement last week condemning the attacks on Iran, obviously citing Chapter 5 of the UN Charter, China and Russia also siding with Iran and drafting the text at the UN Security Council meeting on this issue. Iran has very, very serious economic relationships with China, with Russia, and with India. Iran is actually one of India's largest suppliers of oil, which is very important for such a large-scale economy. I think what we need to watch out for in this particular meeting is, firstly, number one, we will be marking one head of state firmly absent. President Putin will not be at the BRICS Heads of State meeting this weekend. Brazil, like South Africa, is a Rome Statute signatory, which does not permit a person who has a warrant of arrest on them from the International Criminal Court. I would like to see, Kathy, once as well, with the same conversation you're having, which is the issue of the currency, which is the issue of economic advancement, and also if BRICS is really going to rein itself in and push a little bit more aggressively, given the geopolitical climate and what happened to a BRICS Plus member state within the past 2 weeks. I'd like to see if they're really going to forge ahead more aggressively with their political and economic agenda moving forward.
Thank you so much for that update. We'll certainly be watching what happens in that particular meeting. And no doubt, Lerato, that should there be anything said or done that causes discomfort, we'll be reading about it on Truth Social. We won't have to wait until Monday.
Indeed, Kathy, indeed.
I told you, she's a diplomat. She's like, no, I'm not getting involved, Kathy. You're on your own. You're on your own. Thanks for throwing me under the bus, Lerato. Our phenomenal host of the G20 series, giving us all the important updates as it relates to South Africa's position, the presidency of the G20, and of course, the role that we're playing there and all the related events that are happening. Okay, on that note, it brings us to the end of the talking point for today. Up next is the book reading, the show back with you again tomorrow between 9 and midday.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
EFC is live this Thursday after months of talk.
And you got nothing, bro. Beat someone relevant, then come show me what you got.
The middleweight division's biggest rivalry comes to a dramatic conclusion.
Massive drama here at the main event of EFC. Never seen anything like it. This crowd.
It's Luke Michael versus Shadrach and Sua for the middleweight title. EFC 125. Live from the World Sports Betting Arena this Thursday, July 3rd. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365, Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
SFM's award-winning drama department presents another episode of the book, A Testament of Hope, the autobiography of Dr. Sam Motsuenyane. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised.
The conference was a resounding success in terms of attendance and especially the caliber of leaders who attended it. Important decisions were taken and resolutions passed included the proposed establishment of a National Soil Conservation Organization named ANSCA, the endorsement of the draft constitution prepared by the organizing committee, and its authorization to continue serving as the executive of the new body with additional members elected to constitute an expanded board of trustees. The elected office bearers were Mr. W.B. Ngakane as president, Mr. J.M. Muhlala as deputy president, and I was to serve as national organizing secretary. The importance of cooperation between the farming communities and the Department of Native Affairs was strongly emphasized and deemed essential if the soil erosion problem was to be successfully tackled. This cooperation had to be built on their sympathetic understanding by the government of the particular problems that were facing black farmers at the time. It was strongly felt that more consultation between government and the rural communities would render it easier to implement most of the soil conservation schemes that were being generally opposed in certain parts of the country. The conference unanimously agreed that a great part of the black areas could be saved by the adoption of freehold land ownership, as the pride of individual land ownership was fundamental to proper land utilization. The need for individual black farmers to be granted loans intended specifically for the promotion of soil conservation practices was further emphasized. Poverty was cited as one of the key factors impeding prudent land use practices in the black areas. Following the official launch of ANSCA, the immediate challenge that I had in my new position as the National Organizing Secretary was how to make this fledgling organization known to the black population. I also had to ensure that its separate identity and independence from the National Veld Trust was recognized. For the purpose of enabling ANSCA to make direct contact with the farming communities in the rural areas, a comprehensive film show and lecture tour covering over 60 tribal areas in the Transvaal province was initiated during September 1953 and continued until March 1954. With funds donated by the National Veld Trust, ANSCA was able to purchase a van, a generator, a 16mm Bell and Howell film projector, which Adam Koradira and I used when hosting film shows in the remote areas of South Africa. Forming the basic content of my lectures and to convey the ANSCA's message on the disastrous outcomes of soil erosion to the black farming communities, we used the illustrated National Veld Trust film on soil conservation work in Basotho land entitled The Story of Matsila. The film was produced by the National Veld Trust in collaboration with the Department of Agriculture in Basotho land. It portrayed a clear picture of the serious effect and immensity of the soil erosion problem in that country, and also what remedial conservation measures were being applied to hold or minimize further land destruction. In many places, people reacted quite positively to ANSCA's conservation appeal, but there were also areas where the message evoked some skepticism or even open resistance. The people who opposed the government's reclamation and rehabilitation schemes suspected that ANSCA was an organ of the Native Affairs Department masquerading as an independent black initiative soils conservation organization. All that I could tell the skeptics was that ultimately, only time would prove in no uncertain terms how grossly mistaken they were to associate ANSCA with the much maligned Native Affairs Department. The 1953 to 1954 film show and lecture tour of the reserves included tribal villages and institutions in the Ventersdorp, Lichtenburg, Pilanesberg, Christiana, Louis-Trichardt, Sibasa, Duivelskloof, Rustenburg, Middelburg, Pietersburg, Phalaborwa, Leitsdorp, Tzaneen, and Phalaborwa districts. At the end of the 7-month tour of the reserves, thousands of black people in the rural areas had heard the message of ANSCA on the importance of soil preservation, particularly concerning the vital role that black farming communities should play in helping to counteract the worsening ill effects of the rampant soil erosion problem, which endangered not only the future of our country, but also the lives of all its inhabitants. In June 1954, the first annual conference of ANSCA was held in Seplan in Western Transkei. No less than 200 delegates comprising of local farmers, chiefs, and tribesmen participated. Although some important speeches were delivered by various experts during the conference, the highlights were the practical conservation demonstrations which were arranged by the Transkei Department of Agriculture at Blomvale, Miss M.T. Soga's family farm in Seplan. The success of the conference was measured also by the level of cooperation that was achieved between ANSCA and the Transkei Department of Agriculture in making arrangements for the conference. The department made a generous contribution to the conference budget by donating an ox from its trust farms to be slaughtered on the occasion. In the aftermath of this conference, individual membership of ANSCA from the area increased slightly. Following this successful ANSCA conference, the executive committee decided to stage a fundraising concert in the Durban City Hall later that year, and the Manhattan brothers were engaged for that purpose. Special arrangements were made with the Durban municipal authorities to make the City Hall available for the proposed fundraising concert. The Manhattan brothers were at the pinnacle of their popularity. The 3-day ANSCA fundraising show was, unfortunately, a total failure because the funds that were raised barely covered the cost of hiring the City Hall and paying artists for their performances. Further efforts at raising funds for that organization through donations by affluent black business persons also proved to be less than successful. I can remember that on one occasion, Mr. John Cope and I undertook a special trip to Durban to meet with and solicit financial support from Mr. I. Alexander, a well-known millionaire and bus tycoon in that city. Our joint effort notwithstanding, the promises that were made to consider possible financial assistance to the organization bore no fruit. The beginning of 1955 saw the launch of another project by ANSCA. This focused primarily on involving black youth in the promotion of soil conservation activities in the area where they live, in the same manner that the white youth were trained through the land service movement. During the January school holidays, ANSCA organized a land service camp which was held at Mokonene High School in Garamokgopa. At least 120 students and teachers from various high schools in the northern Transvaal participated in this project, whose main objective over the 7 days was to provide training in the basic principles of soil and nature conservation and provide practical teaching on how to lay contours on sloping land. The students, the teachers, and the community of Mokonene and Ramoroko villages where the contours were made benefited immensely from this single event. The success of the land service camp can largely be attributed to the cooperation and participation of the officials of the Department of Agriculture and Education in the Northern Transvaal province. ANSCA issued attendance certificates to all the students who attended the camp, and some 40 years later, I was pleasantly surprised and highly impressed to find one of these certificates framed hanging in a home at Machaka village in Butlokwa. This, in my view, attests the importance of the ANSCA land service camp at Ramokgopa in 1955.
That was another episode of the book, A Testament of Hope, the autobiography of Dr. Sam Motsuenyane. The book is available online on www.kmmr.co.za, KMMR Publishers, and in all leading bookstores countrywide. It is broadcast on SAFM at 11:45 Monday to Thursday on The Talking Point. It is produced for the station by Vovi Patala, read by Samson Kumalo. Technical production, Wiseman Mangele, Nanda Koza, and Tato Mapuruma.
National Arts Festival is back. South Africa's biggest celebration of the arts is on. From the 26th of June to the 6th of July, Makhanda becomes the stage for South Africa's boldest theatre, dance, music, arts, comedy, and more. Experience the creative energy, markets, exhibitions, and many surprises. It's where the country comes to create and the world takes notice. Browse the program and book now at nationalartsfestival.co.za. Own it, celebrate it, be there.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 106.2 FM in Zanin.
It's 12 o'clock on Wednesday, the 2nd of July, 2025. Very warm welcome to Updated Noon here in SAFM. Leading the conversation, I'm John Gericke in for Sakina Kamwendo. Coming up this hour.
To what extent are they able to support the role of Chief Justice Maya? Because ultimately, the Deputy Chief Justice is supposed to be the second in command.
Interviews for the position of the Deputy Chief Justice are underway in Sandton in Johannesburg, and we speak to the Umkhonto weSizwe party about reported alleged division within the party. We'll get a couple of views on that, a number of issues happening in that party, so we'll bring you details on that. Share your views with us, 41391, charged at R1.50 in SMS. You can call us on 086 000 2032, and our WhatsApp voice note number is 082 692 3909. You can post your comments on Twitter or Facebook as well. Use the hashtag #UpdateAtNoon. You can find us at SABC News_radio. That and more coming up in today's edition of Updated Noon. First, the news with Utsile Sako.
Thanks, John. Top stories: interviews for Deputy Chief Justice underway, and Iranian bill suspends cooperation with the UN nuclear watchdog. Good afternoon. Interviews for the position of Deputy Chief Justice are underway in Sandton in Johannesburg. Gauteng Judge President Dunstan Mlambo, Free State Judge President Kagni Musi, and Northern Cape Judge President Pule Tlaletsi have been nominated for the position by President Cyril Ramaphosa. The Judicial Service Commission will be interviewing the candidates over the next 2 days. Research and Advocacy Officer at Judges Matter, Mbekezeli Benjamin, says the decision will be determined by how well they are able to play a supporting role to the Chief Justice.
Key issue in all of these are to what extent are they able to coalesce around the vision of the Chief Justice? To what extent are they able to support the role of Chief Justice Maya? Because ultimately the Deputy Chief Justice is supposed to be the second in command. They're supposed to run the Constitutional Court and also support the Chief Justice in their responsibility.
A fifth person has been added to the case of 4 individuals arrested in connection with the 2021 July unrest. The accused appeared briefly in the Roodepoort Magistrates Court west of Johannesburg, where the case was postponed to the end of this month. The 5 are alleged to have posted inciting messages on a WhatsApp group, which authorities believe contributed to the public violence and looting of retail stores in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal at the time. The accused face charges of conspiracy to commit public violence and 2 counts of incitement to commit public violence. One of the accused, Bohadi Mapisa, who is a member of the MK party, insists she's innocent.
I feel that there's a lot of injustice that is going on when the public violence that I'm accused of started. I was at work. I am a nurse by profession. Even if they want, they can go and check my register. I have signed in and out of work. So I do not know why am I charged of something that I did not do. I know nothing of this. Maybe my sin is that I am a fan of my president, Jacob Gedleyihlekisa Zuma.